Oh, and then I played Ark for a bit.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I haven't played Ark yet.
I got. It's really I'm just playing it like I don't know. I gotta catch them all.
Yeah.
Like
Anyway,
it's the Weavern today. Nope, it killed me. I'll try again tomorrow.
basically prehistoric Pokemons.
Yeah, except you catch him by knocking him unconscious with
Don't you
narcotics or clubs.
don't you do that in Pokemon too?
I guess you use Pokemon than narcotics.
Yeah.
I guess technically they could put sleep and shit on them and make it easier. So technically you're
Yeah.
using narcotics.
Anyway. All right, so this is going to be episode 7, I think, of the Read the Manga podcast with Corey and Zach. That's Corey. I'm Zach. We are the co-hosts. Today we're going to be talking about Fooly Cooly. It is a science fiction, comedy, surrealist, mecha epic that is only really 6 episodes, so it can't really be considered an epic, but they basically get 20 episodes worth of plot in there.
The Smepic.
What?
The Smepic.
The Smepic.
The small
Small epic. Yeah, no, that's actually a really good term, Smepic. But yeah, this podcast is called Read the Manga, and apparently there actually is a manga. So, starting out, how'd you come to this series? When did you start watching it?
Well, I mean, like a lot of the series we do, Adult Swim. Back
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, it'd pop on and I'd be like, oh cool. And they'd show it out of order and stuff.
Yeah,
Sometimes they show it in order, and that was cool.
yeah.
Um, that was pretty much it. Like I mostly watched it when I was like 13, 14 or whatever.
Same here. I think I saw the 5th episode first. So that was my introduction to the series with the whole John Woo Doves thing. And then they have the whole freaking gunfight at the beginning. I didn't know any of the characters. I just knew I freaking loved it. By the way, I didn't take any notes for this. I didn't really do any preparation. Uh, just getting through this series again, after everything that's kind of happened in my life, was very difficult for me. I had a lot of trouble actually watching it last night, like mentally. Um,
No.
yeah, and it's never really had that effect on me before. It's always had like there's always been like a melancholy feeling about it ever since I was a kid, where it's an equal amount of like love and sadness for it just because of how beautifully it's done. And it's a series that I've kind of gone back to about once every couple of years in my life, just to sort of explore where I'm at emotionally. And I feel like it really helps me get in touch with myself in a lot of ways, because when I saw it as a kid, I was about Naota's age. I was very much relating to like the general sentiment of what he was going through, if not the literal crap that he was going through. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have like a hot older female friend as much as
I
I
mean, it's
wanted
kind of
to,
like a Catcher
but
in the Rye, but with a robot coming out of the head.
pretty much, yeah. So this go around was just extra tough for some reason, and I just didn't feel like I was in a mental state to really process it. Um, as far as like exposing myself to that much emotion, it's almost like Fooly Cooly is like a nerve that's exposed in my brain that whenever I touch it, I never really know the reaction that it's gonna entail. But
Yeah,
yeah,
from somebody who's never seen it before, Destiny was confused every episode of the way. She had no idea what was going on. It's
yeah,
something that you have to rewatch a few times in order to kind of grasp. But I feel that's kind of something where, for one, it's like one of the most put together series. It ages perfectly fine. Like,
hmm,
I think that's one of the thing that's great about it is they put a lot of heart into making it, and a lot of like that sincerity rings through a lot of the characters, and even though they are zany, and it's like the whole melancholy feel like I want to point something out. I feel like at least with the English dub is I feel like the Boondocks took a note from Fooly Cooly with just like how Naota narrates just gives me like the Huey vibe. Like Huey's character kind of narrates like Naota, like
uh,
everything's the same around here. It's always boring, like and I'm just sitting there like it's kind of like you have that kid that just kind of speaks like somebody who's like wiser or beyond their years in certain instances. And then you have situations where they get grounded back to being a kid. And I feel like that's kind of one of the things about Fully Coolly that
yeah,
hits me there is like I watched it around Naota's age and I feel for the kid when he's like, I'm just trying to be an adult. and then all this awkward stuff gets in the way of that. And that's something apparently I never knew till now, is I looked it up, and apparently the kanji on Kanti's face is the kanji for adult, but it's like cracked.
Okay. Dude, there's so
So
many Easter eggs in this show. You know what I noticed on this time that I had never noticed before? When Mamimi is playing her little Game Boy thing, she drops it and the logo on it says Cyberdyne. Like the
Cyberdyne.
Cyberdyne, like the company that launched Skynet and Terminator.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the key to unlocking Fooly Cooly, in that there's so many references hidden about, but they don't really have any rhyme or reason. The director has stated multiple times, when asked why he put the guitars in, why the obsession with curry and sour drinks, why the obsession with certain pop culture references, he straight up just said because he liked them. Like there
Bass
was no
guitars.
other reason for it. Hmm?
Bass guitars.
All the bass guitars. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about at the end that what was the model guitar that they used? It was like a Gibson.
Haruko's is
No, it was Adams. Adams guitar. They specifically say the model of it.
a School of Rock one.
It's the School of Rock one.
I'm pretty sure he had the let's see, I have it opened right here. So they said his instrument is referred to as a Gibson EB0, which is it's
Yeah,
the one
Gibson
that
EB0.
that's the one that Jack Black uses, the same body shape, the School of Rock guitar.
Yeah.
Or the what's their name? They're the never mind. I don't know.
Okay, so I kind of want
Angus
to
Young, that guy.
Angus Young. Oh yeah, in his schoolboy outfit, which is kind of fitting, honestly. But yeah,
Angus.
no,
So it's an iconic rocker guitar. Like
yeah,
I mean, that was the one that was bundled with like freaking Guitar Hero. So
yeah,
it's like a very iconic, like rebellious rock guitar. Which I mean, it kind of works with the whole like it's Adam's guitar.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's essentially. I mean, it makes sense for this all-powerful pirate king energy
Yeah,
being to have that guitar, I guess, as far as what he represents in the story.
we're gonna forget about our boy Amaro's Commander Amaro's guitar.
Which one was Commander Amaro? Or which one was his guitar? He was the guy with the eyebrows, right?
Yeah, and she shows up, but it's like this big. It's like
Well,
a little
yeah.
baby guitar.
Yeah, everything in this series is about dicks. Okay, so I don't want to be too scatterbrained about this, despite this is a very scatterbrained series. So would you rather talk about the anime or the manga first?
Well, honestly, after reading it, it's really just a companion piece to the anime. It adds a few things in different angles, kind of like with Akira. Except like this is a situation where if you really like Fooly Cooly and all the other materials like season 2, season 3, I say go ahead. I wouldn't say it's necessary to enjoy Fooly Cooly. So I guess it's kind of a morose read the manga instead of a with an exclamation point. Like it's there if you want to read it. It's got Made in Abyss kind of artwork. It's chibi. It's fun. It's
Yeah,
scatterbrained.
so I don't think either of us are too high on the manga, and I think one of the huge things that the manga loses in its adaptation to the format is that it just doesn't have that kinetic energy that the anime has. The anime is such a perfect melding of not just visuals and movement and animation, but also sound, as far as the specific inflections that all of the voice actors give to their characters, both in the English and the Japanese, and also in the sense of like obviously the ridiculously good soundtrack by the Pillows, which we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna fucking wax poetic about the Pillows like throughout most of this podcast. I love that band. Um, but yeah, so basically, wait, where's it going with that? So
Essentially, there's a lot of difficulties
yeah,
for
yeah,
them to
yes,
stack up against each other because one uses the medium that's into a lot of different extents and capabilities, whereas the other one is just kind of there.
yeah, Fooly Cooly uses the medium of anime and cinema in general in every possible form that it can. And the manga is just kind of feels flat on the page there because it doesn't really have any of that kineticism. It doesn't really have any of that kind of
Hard, like third person.
scatterbrained lunacy.
Yeah.
And when you take out the excitement and the craziness and the lunacy of it, the story just kind of becomes depressing.
Well, I mean, a little bit, but I mean, it's the whole. I mean, it's like, there's bipolar depression,
Hmm.
like that's a thing, and it's like, I don't know if we're gonna look at it that way. Like I feel like like you said, the momentum, the kind of kinetic force that creates with like characters slamming into a scene, and all the dynamic exaggerations of everything, like, and the fact that it does affect the world. It's not just like, oh, that's an exaggeration. Like somebody like exaggerates, they go through a wall, the wall actually gets broken. Stuff. It's
Yeah.
like a very chaotic world in general, and everybody adheres to those rules still, which makes it even more interesting, especially since it's kind of displaced. Like it's somewhat in our world, but somewhat not in our world. It's like kind of like a Hayao Miyazaki kind of level, ambiguity of like whether it's real or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all fake, but like it's in a fictional place in a setting that could be viewed as like a real setting.
Yeah, it'd be almost like the way he kind of talks about in the beginning that nothing interesting or amazing happens in that town. It almost feels to me like he's definitely not in a big city. It feels like sort of like almost like living in Tracy, California, where we grew up, of like that sort of idea of just sitting around all day, not really knowing what to do with yourself, hanging out with friends sometimes, but having this sort of directionless existence because you don't feel like you can really get out. And I feel like that's a thematic element that it shares in common with The Catcher in the Rye so much, of like this adolescent kid that's kind of on the cusp of adulthood, but not really, just kind of trying to find his way in a place where he doesn't really believe that anything interesting can happen. And the great thing about it is that when he gets the call to adventure, when he goes out and crazy stuff does happen and he does become the center of everything, the characters don't really treat it like it's all that unusual. Like something crazy will happen and suddenly a robot will appear and people will just kind of ignore it and go with it. Like everybody in that world likes to sit there and complain about how uninteresting the world is while there's tons of interesting things going on around them that they kind of just fail to notice.
Well, I think it's because like, his brother leaving affected him so much that he can't see beyond that. And that's a lot of the series is about, is like him getting over the fact that his brother went to America.
Yeah.
He's like he's stuck there like with a girl that he's like not sure if he likes or doesn't like, who he was his like brother's girlfriend. And then this chick like ran him over with a fucking Vespa and beat him over the head with a bass guitar, while he's still trying to figure out how he feels about like people comparing him to his brother.
Hmm.
It's kind of weird to even think that he had an older, like somewhat successful brother when you look at the house that he grew up in. Like,
Yeah.
and I think one of the scenes that really drives it home is when he's laying there in bed and it shows the top bunk with like boxes on top.
Mhm.
And then it shows him just like laying there on the bottom bunk, like, what do I do? And it's like, I'm pretty sure he yells out his brother's name too a few times, and that's when Canty comes to action. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like one of those things where when someone like leaves your life, I guess they kind of like take something with them and they don't realize what they like leave behind and the repercussions. And I think that's a lot of why he was like very jaded and believed his town was uninteresting, because he's like, well, my brother went off to America, he went out to go explore the world and go places, but I'm not that good enough like to do that kind of stuff because he's him and I'm me, and this and that.
And the great thing about that dynamic is that it's not that he's not good enough because other people are telling him he's not good enough. He's not good enough because he's telling himself that he's not good
He
enough.
doesn't swing the bat.
Exactly. Okay, so I want to actually thematically go through each of the episodes here because I think each one is doing a different thing thematically that all kind of folds into the larger narrative, but every single episode introduces a new thematic aspect that builds on the last episode. So, talking about the first episode, this is going to contain spoilers if you guys don't know. If anybody's watching our podcast at this point, they should know it contains spoilers. But anyway, so
Oh, we should talk real quick when it came out.
what's that?
Yeah, this series came out in like
It was airing in Japan in like
2003.
2005. Yeah.
It's like 2001, 2003. So if you haven't been convinced to watch or read it by this point, then stick around and we'll give you reasons to.
Yeah.
So spoiler-tastic.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, the very first episode, more than anything, is about the burgeoning of adolescent sexuality. I think adolescent male sexuality specifically.
I'm trying to be mature, like, don't laugh.
Yeah, you could laugh. This is a funny series. Dude. I think the director would be mad if you didn't laugh at all of the dick jokes in this show.
So kind of like Kill a Kill is in the same ballpark as this, where it's like, nah, if your friend hates ecchi, you show them this series because it's like the focal point.
Okay, so look at this series of events. So he starts out with Momimi. It starts out sexual to begin with. She's
14.
what?
He's not even 14. He's 12.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, your mic's cutting out a little bit.
Oh, he's not even 14. He's 12.
Yeah. So he's a 12-year-old kid. He's with Mamimi. She's this high schooler. They're not really attracted to each other. They're more kind of just sharing in their grief, and she's letting out her sexual frustrations because his brother has gone away, and he's kind of just letting it happen because he doesn't really know what to do. Then obviously, Haruko comes in, breaks all that up, hits him with the Vespa, and he starts growing a horn out of his head that he's a little bit embarrassed by, covering it up when he goes to school and goes to the doctor to find out what it is. Obviously, Haruko's the doctor at this point, and she diagnoses him with psychosomatic adolescent skin hardening syndrome, which is one of the funniest jokes in the entire series.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, she's sitting there talking to him, and basically the entire first episode is just about essentially a kid getting his first boner because like some hot chick has shown up in his life. But what do you think of its portrayal of, I guess, the way that it handles that aspect of the sexuality with all of the fucking dick jokes and stuff?
I mean, like, it's one of those things where I think it handles it pretty exaggeratingly accurate, I guess.
Hmm.
I mean, there's stuff like Big Mouth out there now that kind of does stuff similar, but they kind of go over the top in a different way. This is like also this series came out way before too. So like being a kid and seeing like shit like that where I'm like, huh, know when that happens. That
Yeah,
sucks.
exactly. But like, here's the thing though: when I was a kid, I didn't even understand any of that. I didn't understand any of those references. Like, I was dense enough to not realize what the show was actually about. It wasn't until I went back later and like it was so obvious, basically.
I mean, really,
The
when you're like a 14, 13-year-old watching it, you're just like, man, this stuff looks cool. I'm confused and like, are they gonna get together or not get together? Okay, all right. She took the cool guitar. That's lame. Roll credits. But then you go back and look at it and you're like, oh, okay, I could see. Like, the whole iron is a symbol for like moms use iron. It's like no moms in this
That's actually a good point.
series.
This series is no, that's actually a really good point. It's incredibly Oedipal, but there's no real mother figure. Like all of the women in Naota's life are almost like too old to be his girlfriend, but too young to be his mom, and it creates a very confusing sexual dynamic there, where it's like Mamimi. Obviously, she's not mature enough to be any kind of caretaker, but she's essentially like his older high school version girlfriend that's like at a similar level of maturity. And then Haruko is obviously insane, and he and his dad are both sexually attracted to her, but she's kind of at a point where she's kind of using them both against each other because she's like isn't interested in sex at all. She's interested in her own needs, and she's using sex to essentially manipulate them into getting what she wants.
The whole situation between her and him, or her and Naota, that's like a whole discussion in its own right because I think there is a lot more manipulation on a lot of different levels than just that from the straight away. And I feel like a lot of the key to, and I feel like one of the keys to his power, I guess, was probably just like frustration and confusion. Like
Probably.
as a, which I want. Okay, so one thing I want to point out is they talk about Evangelion a lot,
Yeah.
and in that they have AF barriers.
Yeah.
and it's thrown around. It's just like, like gibberish. Like, oh, it has an AF barrier. What's that mean? It's a barrier that stops things. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, okay. But then you find out like it means like, a specific thing. But in
Absolute
like,
fear threshold.
yeah, because it's supposed to represent the fear that things have atomically, and that's what causes us to all form our singular selves because, we're afraid to, yeah.
But
So
it
like,
also represents the ego, like in the
yeah.
Freudian sense, rather than in like the
So
the
what's
modern sense.
RAF barrier in Fooly Cooly?
RAF barrier.
Yeah,
I
what's RAF barrier?
I don't remember what exactly it was. I know NO barrier or NO channels were something. I don't
They
remember all of the specific abbreviations.
gibberish term like Evangelion with AF barrier, they have NO channels.
Yeah.
And so like that's like a funny thing right there because it's like they reference Evangelion a lot, and then even through the series just going on its own flow, they do like a same kind of shtick. But it's like, what do you think the NO stands for? What do you think? Uh,
Honestly, I've never looked it up.
well, I mean, like if Absolute Fear is Evangelion's NO with the whole like premise of the series, like I don't know, like it makes me try to think of like maybe it's just like I just came up like no. I mean, it's literally just the word no. Like
Yeah.
step
Okay,
off.
but do you know what the abbreviation is? Or is your question purely rhetorical?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know what the abbreviation is.
Yeah, they never explain the abbreviation.
Yeah, it's an NO portal, like a no
Yeah,
portal.
I'm looking it up. They never explain it. But it's almost like I don't want to like draw a thing about like I don't know, because like there is that scene in the fourth episode where she's essentially like mind raping him. Like there's the whole scene where she's like in his head through his NO channel, tugging on his guitar, and he's basically like it all ends up being sexual innuendo where she's like, I can't get it up, and he's just like, oh, don't touch me like that from behind, and he's like, and she's like, I didn't know this was what a boy's insides felt like. So it could actually be a reference to consent.
Like a little kid's shower cap to block the shampoo from getting in their eyes. Like that adds to the weirdness of the scene because it's like to put like kids put those on their heads when they go into the bath or the shower so that they don't get soap in their eyes. So the intent with that scene of her putting it on his head was to imply like an
Oh,
older sibling, younger sibling situation, or like an older family member younger because like, she's bathing a younger person with that on their head. So she
but
was like demeaning him in a certain way by like pointing out he's a kid by putting that on his head
that makes
because
sense.
it's a
I never thought of
childish
that.
like headgear for when you take a bath.
Yeah. But that makes sense though, because like that makes it even more confusing because it at in
Really
some
awkward shit that rolls through on that screen as you watch it, and you're like, God, this is borderline hentai, but it doesn't show anything. Is like making fun of a lot of the shit that people are like into in hentai too. Like, in
yeah.
a way, like it kind of takes the tropes that are used in those things and just tries and forces them into a series that's like PG enough to, well, not PG, but PG-13
Yeah.
to get it by.
There's some butts in there.
Yeah, I mean, like, but I mean, I haven't seen the second or third seasons, but I mean, it's like one of those.
You haven't seen Progressive Alternative either. We're both operating on not having seen them. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just. I think there is more to it. I think she was just manipulating him in general in any way she could. Like,
Yeah.
there's that scene where she's like showing him how to bat, and you could be like, oh, well, this is like kind of like, oh, like it's kind of romantic teaching people how to bat. That's something people do. But then it's like you think about it on a deeper level. The whole episode's about him not being able. Like the episode opens with them saying he's not as good as his brother at baseball, so there's no
Mhm.
point in their team trying. So they go get the robot. And so like she's like, you could do it. You just got to swing the bat. You never swing the bat. And so it's like later she's like trying to help him out after doing all the weird shit with his dad. And so it becomes this thing where it's like he's always probably thought of his brother as being better, so the competition was never there. So she starts flirting with the dad, who I guess wasn't really the dad, he was a robot.
Well, yeah. So yeah, in the manga, it's his real dad. He murders his father. which is one
Yeah.
of the reasons I don't like the manga, because I think it just kind of goes into too like icky dark territory that I don't like. The darkness is there. He wants to kill his dad, but she replaces him with a robot.
Yeah, and
I'm
it,
sorry,
it
Corey.
turned and it turned out he just like, oh, did it cut out?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
all right.
sorry. And and it turned out like didn't he hit the TV? No, he hit him. He just said that he hit the TV. I don't know.
No,
I'm
yeah,
still I'm
he
still on the
actually
fence
hit
about
him.
that.
He hit him in the head. Like he tried to kill him.
But the concept of that, like we're talking about the themes, I feel like that episode's theme was entirely like about the concept of like it wasn't just jealousy, it's like competition. Like you
Mhm.
got to swing, you got to be part of the competition, you got to participate, and you got to try whether you succeed or not. She kept telling him, you never swing the bat, you got to swing the bat. And it never really mattered until he kind of got fluffed up enough to have the confidence to do it at the end.
Well,
But
yeah, it's
it's like
giving
the
someone the
whole
courage to
thing
actually
with
try.
the whole beginning part's like the brother's his like impotent factor, and then you get to the next part where it's like, oh well, you're just like not trying, but your dad's cool, and like starts that kind of fire of competition. He's even like pissed off enough to hang out with Mimi and just lay there while she like fiddles around with him and doesn't give a shit because he's so irritated by the fact that she was fooling around with his dad.
Yeah, and they don't really get into this, but it's entirely possible that Naota being emotionally compromised and sexually confused is the secret to his NO channels working, and she has to keep fostering that in order to keep pulling robots out of dimensions to free atoms from medical mechanica.
Yeah,
And there's a very hard, like very good science fiction backbone to this, but like it's great how you don't have to understand any of that on the first viewing to understand what's going on thematically. That's one of the reasons I love the series, because there's so many layers to it. But I wanted to go to episode 2 a little bit, because that one has kind of a different thing. That one's more Mamimi's episode than it is Naota's episode. That one essentially is about grief and about the pain of loss. And that's the one where she and Naota really start kind of trying to deal with the absence of Naota's brother and fill that hole. Because that's the one where essentially Mamimi's she's going around setting places on fire, right? Like she's becoming an arsonist.
I think what was implied was I think she did burn something down. I think his brother covered for her.
Well, when
Or
yeah, when they were kids,
Met was because she burnt something down, right?
when they were kids, his brother saved her from a school fire, but I don't know if they actually state whether she was the one that started it or not. I think it might be implied that she started it. So she's always kind of looked at I can't remember his brother's name, but she's already always kind of looked at Naota's brother as this almost not just a boyfriend, but almost a God savior figure. And once he leaves, she obviously can't put the God savior figure thing into Naota because he's just a kid. So she ends up putting it into Lord Conti. And that's where you get that entire hybrid rainbow scene where he's up flying, and it's like the first time she's watching him in the middle of the burnt down school. And there's that beautiful moment where he kind of goes into that Christ-like pose, and it's playing like the crescendo or the chorus of hybrid rainbow over it.
Yeah, what I want to point out too is when you finally figure out what Adams or whatever his name is actually is,
Yeah,
like a big old bird thing.
yeah,
That's like doubling back to that scene is like pretty awesome because it's like, well, Canty's wearing wings
yeah,
and he's in like a burnt up school and his wings are black, but he's like flying up.
yeah,
So like at first I thought it was like a Christ-like thing, but then I kind of thought like Phoenix.
yeah,
Like that's kind of where my mind went when I saw that this time around after kind of thinking about it. It's like, well, Adamus is a Phoenix and
yeah.
Canty's like that. Oh, so there, you could kind of hint that, Adamus wasn't a guy from like even early on
Yeah, it
or
kind of
argue it.
implies that he's sort of bigger than any human form. And that's an interesting way of like the way this show analyzes the way that men kind of project their own ideas onto women. Like Naota isn't really in love with Haruko. He's in love with her because she fulfills all of these different sort of needs that he has, where he's essentially treating her like a girlfriend, a housekeeper, a brother, and a mom all at the same time, and he doesn't really understand his feelings for her or why he's feeling that way or why she's feeling this niche in his life. Same way with Commander Amaro, where he automatically assumes that just because she's looking for Adamsk, that Adamsk is a sexual competitor to him, that Adamsk is somebody that she's in love with. He just makes that assumption. Like that's not what's going on at all. She's not interested in him that way at all. Like he's a fucking whatchamacallit, like a giant bird thing. Like she has no sexual interest in that guy at all.
But
And
yeah, it's yeah, he's like a one of those shitty ex-boyfriends that comes up and it's like, oh well, you shouldn't trust her, man. She
yeah,
did
pretty
me
much.
dirty, and it's like, well, dude, like you're just a loser.
Yeah, exactly. You can't even produce a full guitar.
But it's like, yeah, and in the end, everybody's always wondering why she's like even bothering with him, and she even gets aggressive with him towards the end when it becomes apparent that his like feelings might get in the way of her getting what she actually wanted.
Yeah.
And I think at the end it was like he was like, nope, I don't want to help you out, but I also don't want to get in your way.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for using me, but no thanks.
Pretty yeah, exactly. And she it's very obvious the way she's using people. And even though Naota and Amaro see it, they can't help but get entrapped by it. And I think it's kind of amazing that the director was able to create this character of Haruko that a huge amount of her character is her manipulating men into doing what she wants to do, but he somehow doesn't make her some like evil femme fatale. He makes her a fully rounded character with her own goals and her own motivations. And even though she's kind of like almost a mysterious manic pixie dream girl type, she never really falls into that category of kind of like heartless femme fatale. And I think part of that is because the moments where she does feel genuine pity for Naota and genuine emotion. And I think she does care about him in some way and wants to kind of be emotionally there for him. But her own goals of uh, essentially unlocking the power of the Pirate King kind of supersede whatever human shit's going on with him and his dad.
Oh yeah, I feel like she never had any really anything vested into him other than I think the most honest she actually was towards him was like the very, very absolute end.
You think so?
Oh yeah, I mean every she's completely playing the stage like every that's why like that one girl who his classmate, she's kind of like a straight man view on everything.
Nina Mori?
Yeah, and she kind of just looks at everything like, yeah, this is all absurd. What's up with you, dude? Like, to Naota.
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean is like, I don't know. Haruko just from the get-go and Offset, like even when you feel like she's being genuine, like it just feels like it's just two at the right moment, right time, just the right thing he needs to hear. And she's constant the fact that she's constantly pushing him into a uncomfortable zone to get those NO channels open shows that, you know, ultimately her goal is more important. But I just, rewatching it, I seem like the time when he impressed her and just kind of shocked her was like the most like, I think that was an actual like, okay.
Which time are you talking about specifically?
Like the very last moment where like he forms a double neck guitar, they do their thing and all that. And it's like
Mm.
right after they like fight and they're pissed off at each other and shit.
When he when he steals the power of the Pirate King and she realizes that he's trying to undermine her and they go into what they probably think is going to be a battle to the death, and then at the end he just relinquishes it and confesses that he loves her. And it's
Yeah.
a really beautiful moment because it's finally Naota admitting to himself the way he's been feeling the entire time. And it doesn't really matter that they don't get together in the end. At the end of the day, Naota knew that he was never going to be with her. The entire thing was just him trying to come to terms and be honest with his feelings about her and understand his own emotions and his own weird mixture of emotions that he was feeling. And I think the scene that really gives me some sympathy for Haruko and makes me know that like not just that she's manipulating him, but she understands what she's emotionally putting him through. And that matters to her is when she leaves and then comes back and he breaks down crying and she kind of holds him when he's like basically telling her, like, why did you go? You didn't say anything. You didn't say goodbye. And I think she understands that, like it or not, they've formed some sort of connection and that she genuinely means something to him, and that by doing what she's doing, she is hurting somebody and there are real consequences to it. Like, I think she's fully cognizant and aware of what he's going through emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that I don't know. Sometimes it was just like a well-placed thing, could seem more genuine or not. But yeah, the scene when he breaks down crying to her, that's one where I'm like, all right, maybe.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah. Oh
it's
yeah, go
kind of
ahead.
it's kind of like I mean, it's not like super analogous to this, but kind of like you watch the whole Harry Potter series wondering what Snape's motivations are, and by the end of it, you're kind of like, okay, he ultimately did the right thing and he understood very much what he was doing, but he's still a fucking dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't really justify what he was doing, but it still explains that, like, yeah, it he ultimately comes out on the side of righteousness because of one final action. And Haruko never really does that, but it is kind of similar where, like, you can kind of know that the character's kind of a piece of shit, but they're well developed and well drawn enough to have a rich emotional life and have an understanding of what they're doing to other people and not just be like evil for the sake of being evil.
So like, why do you think Naoto let Adams go?
I mean, because I don't think he had any desire for power. I think the only reason that he undermined Haruko and took the Pirate King's abilities in the first place so that he could finally get into a place where he was having a conversation with her eye to eye. I think he was trying to prove himself to her and also prove that he didn't need her, and was kind of in a position where it was like fighting her at that point and stealing the power that she was after was the only way that she was going to genuinely acknowledge him. He didn't just want to be somebody that she felt bad for or somebody that she manipulated. He wanted her to he wanted her to view him as somebody that was like sitting on an equal pedestal to her.
Yeah, I think that's why he did it. Like, I feel like he kissed her, declared his love, so he kind of like forced himself into that like position to get that awkward energy or whatever to open those NO channels, and
Mhm.
then just let Adamus go. So then it's like, well, you don't need me anymore now.
Yeah,
This is just me as me.
exactly. And Haruko kind of like she almost pulled a Mary Poppins of like, you come in, you do a bunch of crazy ass shit, upend these people's lives and kind of make them like realize something about themselves along the way and then leave like it's nothing.
I mean, they kind of took that shtick and did it for two more seasons apparently, where they were like,
Yeah.
let's see whose life she'll touch this season.
And for the longest time, I was too close to the series to bring myself to watch alternative and progressive. Like, I just wanted the entire thing to be those 6 episodes, and I never wanted to not ruin it, but I never thought it needed any supplementation. And I just knew that I wouldn't be able to emotionally bring myself to watch those shows. And I think on this episode or this viewing of it, I finally kind of got to a place mentally where I can like let the series go a little bit not and finally not hold it in such a sacred place to where I can't also watch and possibly enjoy alternative and progressive. But I've kind of like had a struggle with myself for a while of whether I was actually going to watch them or not. And this was the viewing where I'm like, okay, like I feel like I've gotten everything I can get out of Fooly Cooly emotionally, at least for now, and I'm ready to move on and experience other parts of this universe.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. It's a I never expected there to be sequels, honestly. Like, it's a good
Nobody did.
series, but that's that's something. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on them because I haven't seen them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we might do an episode on those, like a follow up, maybe a short one. But okay, so we were going through the episodes, and episode 3 is pretty interesting because episode 3 very much we kind of had the Naota episode, we had the Momimi episode. This is definitely the Nina Mori episode, and this is one that's interesting because it's exploring a very similar situation to what Naota's going through, as far as like burgeoning sexuality is concerned, but it does it in the context of a girl, and I think it hits. I'm not a woman, and I don't think you are, but it. I feel just personally, I think it hits a lot of the right beats of handling a girl's like pubescent journey as opposed to a boy's. I think first of all, just in the creature designs, how all of Naota's horns that come out and all of his robots are very like hard edges and very like shiny metal and very much like they have like a very like rough texture to them, and I think that perfectly represents like the like is a perfect visual representation of male sexuality, whereas the monster that comes out of Nina Mori's head is this kind of squid-like, more amorphous, flowy, squishy thing. And I think that's supposed to more represent like the differences between how puberty is physically manifested in men versus how it's manifested in women. And I think there's a lot of emotional stuff that goes along with this. Wait, fuck.
Bathroom.
Dude, I just realized something. Like I this has never occurred to me before. During that episode, was Nina Mori getting her first period?
I don't know. I don't
Because
think so.
look, no, because there's the whole scene where she's having that problem with her stomach the entire time.
Oh yeah. Well, I
Like
mean,
it's she touches the ears and then she has the stomach problem. Then she eats dinner with Naota, and you think it's diarrhea because they're eating spicy curry, but she ends up running to the bathroom.
well,
I
actually,
th-
it's not spicy curry.
it was mild curry, right?
It was the most mild curry you could possibly get, and they still couldn't handle it.
Yeah, they're all bitches. But no, the it, I think that might be a thing. Like I think that might be what was happening. Like they
I
never say
never
it
looked
up
at it that way, but I could see it being like that.
because look at where Nina Mori's life is in that moment. Her parents are getting divorced. Her dad's cheating on her mom with the secretary. Her secretary is the one that's like trying to be like guidance to her in some ways. Her mom and dad are never seen. She obviously has no parental like guidance right now because of what she's going through. Like it
Wears a
makes
US
sense. Huh?
like R shirt the whole time.
What's that?
She wears it like a USSR shirt the whole time.
Yeah, she does, which is I thought was kind of weird.
Yeah,
But no, but the whole thing, like she might be going through like her first like menstrual cycle and have nobody there to help her with it.
no Hank
And
Hill.
what's that?
No Hank Hill.
Yeah, exactly. And Naota's dad's not a Hank Hill. Naota's dad is lecherous as fuck, and it's even implied that like Naota's dad has like some weird sexual feelings toward Nina Mori. That remember the whole bathroom scene where she's sitting there in the bathroom and he comes and hands her the loofah and starts like talking to her about her parents. That's nothing. That's really creepy.
Well, didn't he go there to tell her like not to worry, that he understood like everything that was going on, and like handed her that to help her out?
But he was the one that broke the story
But
about her father. He's the last person that like could give her advice about that. He's the one that kind of ruined her life.
yeah, that is a weird scene then, to like go and like be like, hey, sorry to say that about your parents. Is this a good time? No, in fact, it's like legally a really bad time. It's like, well, here you go.
Yeah, like
Uh,
she's and he doesn't the only
so the
person in
dad's
that
like a character.
I think the dad's the worst person in this show. I think the dad is a
You
piece
used
of
to talk
shit.
about how he's like really interesting and funny because he does the whole like Evangelion thing.
Yeah, because
And
he
then you
wrote a
find
book on
out, like, you
Eva.
think about it. Yeah. But how do you do that? Like, I could see you doing that, but not you. But I mean, I could see it happening, but it's like,
There's an entire college class on Blade Runner, bro.
yeah. Remember the unbearable whiteness of Barbie was a class.
Yeah, it's some freaking. I don't even know what college that was at. But anyway,
California. It was a college of California.
but yeah, I don't know. What did you think
But
of the
yeah, like
third?
I don't know. Oh, the third episode?
Yeah.
I liked it. One thing that I thought was funny was like she sits there and points out to him explicitly that she wears contacts,
Hmm.
and so she normally wears glasses. And then at the end, she's just like puts her finger through. She's like, they're fake.
Well, I think what was going on with that was that the whole glasses thing represents how guarded she is, and that she isn't even confident enough to like show the rest of the students that she wears glasses. And in that moment, Naota thinks that it's a big moment for her where she's like kind of showing the world that she wears glasses, and she's not even doing it. They're just part of her costume. So it's not even like the confession that Naota thought it was.
Or she just never needed glasses in the first place, was just messing with Naota.
But what would be her motivation for doing that?
I don't know. I mean, what's kind of her motivation for just being around Naota other than just like proximity, right?
She has a
Like,
crush on him.
yeah, I mean, like,
And
see, I don't know. We're going into the whole glasses thing, and I'm just like, all right. So was she wearing contacts with fake glasses, or did she not need glasses at all when she pointed out they were fake?
I think she needed glasses. I think she
Like,
was wearing contacts with fake glasses on stage for the costume, rather than just
like,
wear her real glasses.
but not fully
But
towards
not what?
admitting that you have to wear glasses. And I guess it's kind of funny because it's like I guess the reason why it's weird to me is because it's such a small gesture. Like it's
Hmm.
like I'll let people see what I look like with glasses, but I'm not really showing them what I look like with my glasses.
Hmm.
And it's like I guess it's kind of important to show like by the end of the episode she's like I took a step forward, but sue me. Like
Hmm.
that's better than most people. I okay, I don't know. I could kind of see it kind of coming off as that like she made progress, like she didn't show people she was wearing her actual glasses, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I
But
kind of I kind of think the point is that she didn't really make progress in that way. That she was kind of like her old stubborn self. She kind of just went out there and was like kind of showing Naota that like he's not really part of this whole like character arc for her that she's supposed to be going through, and that Naota
my
thinks that she's going through. And I think that scene actually gives her a lot of agency in that way.
let's talk about the baseball episode.
Okay, so baseball episode, full swing. This is the one, like I said, each one has a thematically different purpose. The first one is like the emergence of male sexuality. The second one is collective grief. The third one is the emergence of female sexuality. And this one, I think, is the one that's really kind of towing the line between Naota essentially deciding whether he's still a kid or whether he's going to take that step into adulthood. And I think that's what the swinging of the bat represents, of that one, that final, essentially that decision that he wasn't ready to make, to come out of his brother's shadow and become his own man, basically, and have the confidence to actually go out there and try
Yeah, like
without a
I was
safety net.
saying, like it's a episode where it has a lot more than just like the weird sexuality part of being a kid and growing up. There's also like you're going to have people that rely on you and expectations, and it becomes a matter of like what expectations are important to you and which ones aren't, as
Mm-hmm.
part of being an adult. And it's like at the end of the day, like whether he's good at baseball or not doesn't matter. He never won the game, but
Mm-hmm.
he swung the bat still. He saved the city. That's
Mm-hmm.
different. So it's like, I think that was essentially it, was like he had to learn to take that step. And part of that was being forced into like kind of a form of competition.
Mm-hmm.
Like Haruko saw that he was constantly just kind of like, oh well, my brother's better than me at baseball. Why does it matter? I don't want to play baseball. I don't want to act. I don't want to do this. Like he told the girl that she took the best part for herself in the play.
Mm-hmm.
Like he acts like he doesn't give a shit about the play the entire third episode, and it turns out he did. He just was mad that she got the best part. And it turns out like,
Wait, was he mad about that, or was he just kind of like
you
essentially
you
courting
you
her for?
rigged it so that you could get the best part. And it's like whether he really means it or not or cared, like it's hard for him to argue against it when he never argues against it. It seemed very petty and childish how he made an outbreak like that. But I mean, he's 12.
Well, I don't
Like,
think I don't think it was because he wanted the part. I think he genuinely didn't care. I think he was mad at her for being a hypocrite.
I mean, it could be either he was just like, yeah, look, like I don't give a shit about this part, and you like went out of your way to make yourself look good and like
Yeah,
all that.
yeah.
But it's like the follow-up episodes, like him not even like attempting to try at anything, and then
Hmm.
constantly sitting there and feeling down on himself about like, oh well, you're just manipulating my feelings, and you're a jerk to her, and she's just like, you don't even swing the bat. Why does it matter?
Yeah,
Like you're not even playing the game. You're not part of doing anything. Like
yeah,
she's in the competition against him to try and give him competition. And so Haruko's the first one to give him competition to try and inspire him to fight. He doesn't take it, so she starts hitting him like at his home with his dad and stuff. And he
yeah,
doesn't take the bait, and it finally takes her like getting a hands on with him in order for him to get him to swing his bat.
yeah. And she was able to get him to swing it against his dad first, which was interesting. There was almost a an Oedipal thing of like he had to metaphorically kill his dad and usurp his place before he could actually go in and like become like the fully formed human that he is and reach his potential.
And it kind of works out because like, he the whole bait and switch, like, oh, his dad was a robot.
Hmm.
He's okay. But I feel like that's good because it was like, it was like a necessary plant. Like she knew that that would set him off enough to get him to do that.
Exactly. Like she was manipulating that entire thing.
That's why the series is just crazy. It's just like, man, this kid is getting manipulated all over the place. Like, dude, you're like Catcher in the Rye simp,
Hmm.
whereas like Denji's just like Quentin Tarantino kind of simp. But like, a simp is a simp, man. And it was not a simp, but it's just crazy how it's like it kind of goes to show like they're similar in the theme where it's like you have these kids that just want to like be what they think is a good adult. Naota's kind of sitting there like, well, my brother was my role model. He's gone. I'm left with this guy.
Hmm.
And then, Haruko shows up and she's like, well, when you don't have a man to look up to, you gotta be that guy. So you gotta just fast forward to being an adult.
Gotta just swing the bat.
Yeah. And
Step up or step aside.
yeah, it's like sure there's a good moral lesson to be learned, but we still have to take into account like he's 12 and like
Mhm.
this chick's totally manipulating him to like, accelerate his like growing up when he's like damn near like sitting around like life is pointless and meaningless. I'm like, dude, you're 12. You should be playing with Beyblades.
Yeah. But that's when we go into episode 5 where he saves the town and he kind of thinks he's hot shit. And at the beginning of the episode, he and his dad have that childish BB gun fight for Haruko's honor. And then when his friends drive by in that truck and he finds out that they got a job at
Every
co-
time.
sorry, you cut out again.
Oh, she straight up punches his dad with like a glove that comes out of like her lady parts, like mysterious black space.
Yes, I love that. But yeah, they're having that little John Woo esque gunfight, and then his friends roll up in that jeep, and they talk about how they got a job, and he's kind of like it kind of forces him back to reality a little bit, where he's like, oh shit, like I'm not really an adult yet. Like my friends are ahead of me in like certain ways. Like just because I went out there and swung the bat doesn't mean that I'm like it essentially he's kind of like sitting there like why are my friends getting these responsibilities before I am and having these signifiers of being an adult and I'm still running around in the field playing BB guns with my dad.
Well, yeah, and he also points out that aren't you guys a little too young to have jobs? And they're like, yeah, but nobody cares.
Yeah, but he was
And
also
so
do
there's because I don't know, that was just something I noticed is they're like they point out that they're like, yeah, we're young, but nobody knows that we're doing this anyway, so it's okay. And I was like, with the whole with the whole Naota thing, like it's kind of funny, like the kids still acknowledge their kids to a certain degree, and they notice the wacky things that go on, like his friends do. They'll be like, "You have a robot now?"
yeah.
But it's like,
I love when his dad's like, "That's our television set."
yeah. Or the fact that it can eat. That's funny. I like
Oh yeah,
Yankee.
she's like, "Why is the TV eating Kirsch?" But yeah, so basically that whole scene happens, and then the big battle happens, obviously. Well, before that, he tries to take Mamini on an actual date, and she turns him down once things start to get real, once he starts acting like, oh yeah, we should be boyfriend and girlfriend, we should go on dates. And she's kind of almost like, hey, like, I honestly don't really like you like that. I like your brother like that. I was kind of just using you as a surrogate. She doesn't say that outright, but like it's kind of implied that like, hey, like now that you're trying to get real, I'm not into it anymore. Now this is getting weird. Like I don't actually want to be your girlfriend. And Naota's got that whole confusion of like, okay, like I accomplished this thing, I saved the town. These girls, at least Momimi, seems like she's sexually attracted to me, but then she's actually not, and I still have these weird feelings for Haruko. So he doesn't really know what stage of development he's supposed to be in. And I think a lot of us go through that phases where we're watching our friends hit certain phases before us, but then we're hitting certain phases faster than we feel like we're ready for. And we don't really know what stage of our development we're supposed to be in sexually or maturity wise, or getting a job, or we're supposed to be in school. And we're kind of in that like age from like 12 to like 17 where we're like, everyone's kind of moving at different speeds, and you kind of like have that weird ego thing where you're like, where am I supposed to be right now? Where do I fit into all this? Like, what is my, am I a kid? Am I an adult? What things should I be doing that are like an adult? What things that I keep doing that are like childlike? Like, and navigating that and that struggle, I think, is something that they do remarkably well with Naota's character, and is incredibly relatable.
And I wonder why he's like, you gotta look at like why he's so in a rush to just kind of like just get. Well, I mean, they never explicitly state that he wants to leave, right? He just complains about the town.
Yeah, yeah. He hasn't even thought about leaving.
Yeah, and it's more like he freaks out when Haruko he thinks Haruko leaves. Uh, he's upset his brother left. And
He's
I'm
got some
pretty sure,
severe abandonment issues.
yeah, and then the girl he likes at the end, she ends up leaving.
Mhm.
So it's like, you know, he's the only one. Well, he's not the only one, but like out of the main characters, he decided to stay,
Yeah.
as far as we know.
And it's interesting because all of this is happening. Mamimi leaves, Haruko leaves, and I think the entire time the only real healthy female on male relationship that he has in his life is him and Nina Mori. But he's too blinded by all of this other bullshit to see that like and from a normal middle schooler perspective, those are the two that should probably be together and have their cute little middle school romance. And she obviously wants that, but she's too guarded to actually like make a move on it, besides just casting him as the second lead in the school play to get close to him. And he's too distracted by all the other crap going on in his life to just have like a chill middle school romance with this girl. And he's basically being thrust into these kind of way too adult relationships at a very young age with these women that are way too old for him.
Well, that's why I thought it was weird to even make sequels, and I find out that they have nothing to do with it. So I was like, oh, okay, because it's like
Mm.
I think kind of the beautiful thing about Fully Cooley is it's like a chunky slice of life if you watch it one big bulk. Like it's essentially a 2 hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
So you watch it like that, like you're getting just a 2 hour snippet of like a short period at a time of like a few days in which this chick shows up, causes a lot of havoc to try and like farm a Phoenix guy by milking a kid's like, ego. And then like, shower poofing Phoenix into existence and noping out, saying, "Well, I'm just not that into you." And he's like, "Cigarette girl," and she's like, "I'm just not that into you." And he's like, "Other girl," and she's like, "Maybe." And he's like, "Cool." And then
Yeah.
it's like, roll credits, Vespa ride. All right, done. And it's like, you kind of think about it, and it's like that's really like the point of it is it has to, everything that is in chaos has to go back to normalcy, and everything in normalcy will, entropy, and is a state of things just wanting to go into chaos, and then
Mm.
you have order, which is like everything has to like reconsolidate. And it's like, the series is kind of like a big of explosion of events that then recombine back at the end, where it's like, well, at least he feels a little bit better about himself.
Mm.
Or the fact of the matter is, I feel like the more important thing was he was given the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
Not so much any, not he never really is given any answers from anybody. They just like challenge him to like think more
Yeah.
and question things. And I
Yeah.
think that's it's like more about the growth of the character, not really seeing any actual product. I mean, I wouldn't say I see any significant product change in Naota other than he's like less cynical and a little bit more like honest with people at the end. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's not bad for like a short and sweet series about even small improvements being a good thing. That one girl is about to burn down their entire town. The best thing that could have happened to it was her being inspired by a picture to move.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Mamimi was probably a dangerous force that he shouldn't have been hanging with. Haruko obviously was a existentially dangerous force, and I feel like that's kind of a good point that you brought up, that Naota doesn't change that much by the end, and that's kind of the point. Like, progress is small steps. You don't have these huge arcs in the course of 2 hours. You are gradually kind of processing all of your experiences in your mind and trying to improve yourself based on that and change based on that. And he kind of realizes at the end that he doesn't need to take these huge giant leaps into adulthood. He doesn't need to go on dates with these older women. He doesn't need to like take the responsibility of being the man in the house. He can just kind of be a middle schooler and take those steps gradually. And that's kind of represented in like the changing of his palate. There's the whole spicy curry thing, but then there's also the sour thing of like he doesn't like sour stuff, but he's kind of forcing himself to drink it because he doesn't want to be thought of as a little kid. But at the end, he finally kind of goes back to the sweeter drink.
And I think one thing that I noticed about it that kind of goes with that is it kind of reminds me of South Park in that regard, where there'll be some episodes where it's just like, they're TSA agents or something, and then there'll be episodes where it's like they just really want an Xbox,
Yeah.
like a kid being a
They don't
kid.
care about what else is going on.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny that I kind of got this feeling from hearing Naota just comment and have this kind of like adultish point of view, where it's like you could tell it's a kid written by an adult talking from a jaded teenager's perspective, a lot like
Mm-hmm.
how Kyle talks from South Park.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
so
a good comparison.
I don't know, it's funny because they do reference South Park in this series, people.
The anime, or yeah, the whole animation style where it becomes South Park is great.
Got my pardon and I'm handsome. And I
Isn't there a line where Captain Amaro is like yelling at Haruko and like he basically says, "I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm a man. I can buy my own insurance now."
yeah, essentially.
And it's great because it kind of shows between Amaro and Naota how we put these weird signifiers on what's considered adult. We all have kind of our own images of like what benchmarks make us a grown up. Like we all have kind of these different ideas of like, am I an adult when I buy my first car? Am I an adult when I can do my own taxes? Am I an adult when I buy my first house, you know?
Yeah, and it's these kind of like landmarks, like,
Mm.
uh, that, society said, like I think a big thing on that is like NATO kind of questions like, why is that even important? Why does that matter?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do you need a boyfriend? Yeah, maybe I like you, but maybe, this. And it's like, I feel like a lot of that is a really good thing about it is like when they are like, what's fully cool even mean? And like they
Fully
like all give their vague like
cool.
it's like a rusty venture. Like nobody knows
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
You know, Chinese culture enough to know if that's like just slang for like fooling around or whatever. But it's like the implication is like a fooly cooly, so it sounds sexual, but
Yeah.
it might not be anything. It might just be gibberish.
Yeah, it's kind of
But
just meaningless.
that's kind of like what I think is an important thing is like you have a lot of these people evoking these awkward feelings out of this kid for like no other reason than their own and the reasons they give, and all he has to give on is like how he feels about it and his reactions. It's a very reactionary situation for him to learn.
Mm.
Like he doesn't gain wisdom through like just talking to a character. His wisdom's all gained from just like how he like freaking hates or wants to avoid feeling that way, or learned how to like, get over feeling away. Like it's all reactionary to everything that he gets put through, mostly through Haruko.
Hmm.
She sets up all these little tasks for him to do that end up like kind of building him up piece by piece for him to be able to be like, yeah, I like you. Oh,
Hmm.
shoot. I finally let him out. Like
Yeah.
Like the whole series is just like, well, Adamisk. Yep, Adamisk is here.
Pretty
You're
much.
like,
And there's this whole other plot line that's going on besides that's completely independent of the emotional arc that Naoto's going through. Like the world almost got destroyed. And it's
yeah, but I mean, right now the world's probably going like, I don't know. I find Japan so interesting for that regard. Even I mean, America does it too, but it's like, for all we know, like in some part of like Brazil, there's some dude who's like, well, I just ate the like magical papaya of power, and like, now I'm gonna use the infinity thing to destroy everything. Not if we can help it. We wouldn't know.
yeah. So I feel like we kind of talked pretty in depth about episodes 5 and 6. And if episode 5 is thematically about like thinking that you're hot shit and being down, like dragged back down to earth, I think
Well, it's called
episodes,
Brittle Bullet.
yeah.
Like it's kind of interesting because they kind of throw the brittle bullet thing at you in your face with the airsoft fight because they're brittle bullets.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like when you get hit by an airsoft pellet, like an airsoft gun is scary looking if you don't know what it fires,
Hmm.
and then it'll hurt, but you'll like live.
Hmm.
I think that's the point. Was like he went through that situation where like you see the revolver in the back of his head like misfire, like
Yeah.
fire, and like
When it fires and the robot comes out.
yeah,
Yeah. Because I think when it, you know what's, oh, I forgot about this scene, but when it finally does fire, the robot shoots out of his head directly into Mamimi's crotch.
yeah, like
Yeah, just right there, which is another very, very blatant sexual metaphor of like all of this like sexual tension like held into this gun, and then it finally shoots off and just
you
full,
imagine just like
fully
having your
climax.
children go to school with this kid while like you're like, what happened to my daughter?
Yeah, I if I ever have kids, this will be our birds and the bees talk. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna show them fully coolly, and then just turn to them and be like, "So, any questions?"
Birds and the bots, technically.
Yeah, birds and the bots.
Adamisk is a bird.
I love that. That could have been the title for this.
Maybe that's what fully coolly means.
Fully coolly, the birds and the bots.
And fully coolly is the friends we made along the way.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
I'm pretty sure it's a lot innuendo.
Yeah.
I mean, for as dirty as a series, though, it's not like nearly as bad. And I think that's the thing about it is like it kind of takes the concept of ecchi and like the ecchi romance series that were popular for a while, like during the 90s and early 2000s and all that, where it's like, oh, this loser guy just ends up getting this like miraculous, awesome chick in his life. It's
Mhm.
kind of like an anti one of those, like, yeah, this kid has this mystical lady fall into his life, but she ultimately makes it like way more difficult and there's no payout. If anything, it's
Yeah.
like the anti magical girlfriend series.
Yeah, and she has no sexual interest in him whatsoever, or anybody for that matter, or anybody that we see. But like, she actually does a magical girl transformation, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, like it kind of hit me just as we are talking. I'm like, there's a lot of series where it's like, oh wow, I put in the CD in my computer and it turned into a chick who wants to marry me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like a whole genre in Japan. And like, you know, or like, like how Botan was to Yusuke. Like if you ship those together and just wrote a whole series on it, like that's like a whole genre there too. Like
Yeah.
those kind of situations. So then you look at like Fully Cooley, where it's like, well, for a normal shonen protagonist, this is the ideal setup for like a freaking harem anime.
Mm.
And in reality, it's like an anti-romance series. It's like a more realistic, like slice of life kind of. But I mean, it's like he has multiple girls that obviously have interest in him, like a harem would, like love Hina. But then it takes like the stuff that kind of goes with that, like in those series, a guy will walk in on a girl and they'll play it for laughs. He'll get punched in the face, he'll nosebleed, and that's it. In this series, it's like this kid is like physically going through like horrible transformations due to his like awkward sexuality and like how that's hitting him in a very awkward adolescent time in which his older brother, his best resource for going through this time, up and left. And I feel like it's kind of like with the girl, how you were saying like it probably is heavily implied that she was having her monthlies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like one of those things where I feel like that's a lot of where Naota's spite comes from in the beginning of the series and throughout it, is the fact that his brother went through the same time, the same awkward time that he had to go through, and then left when he got to that time and wasn't there to help him out with it. And his dad's of no use and his grandpa's far too old to help him out.
Yeah.
And so there's probably like, you know, a little bit of resentment to the fact that he really would appreciate his brother's insight on it, because it seemed like his brother was a relatively well put together dude. Like he was good enough at baseball to go to America. He had a girlfriend who like loved him enough to like fetishize him as a godlike being for like helping him out.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's kind of like that like character that's referenced but never met, which I love characters like that. Like, you know, oh, Jerry's a great guy. And it's like, you'll never actually see that character in the series, but you just know
Like
his
Eddie's
name.
brother from Ed, Ed and
Eddie's,
Eddie.
Eddie's brother, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so okay, this occurred to me just now. Why was Momimi so in love with Naota's brother? And actually, I
I think
have a
so.
theory. Well, no, sorry. Why did Naota's brother love Momimi? Why was he with her when she obviously the relationship between them? She seems like she idolized him, and that's never a good thing in a relationship.
I think that was the point, is the fact that to his brother, it was, she's a girl, they liked each other, he had the opportunity to go to America and he took it. Like it was just a normal, like his entire story is just very boring and normal. Like
See, I
it's
don't
like,
think so.
and but here's the thing, that doesn't justify, like it's not justifying the impact that had on Mimi. That, see, what the point of her character is, like you find out that she really loves his brother because he helped her out with the fire thing, and since then, like they've been close, and so she idolized him. And I feel like it's the one-sided obsession, like it's like about unreciprocal, like a lot of Fully Cooley I always felt when I was growing up, and felt like it would help me out when I was like 14 and all that, was like I would watch the show and I'd be like, this show is about unreciprocated feelings.
Yeah.
And it's like, just doing your best for you. And like these characters are trying so hard for other characters and falling short, and it's showing like the repercussions of that. And then it shows the like the positive like repercussions of like trying for yourself. But a lot of that is like, I feel like Mimi's character is kind of supposed to show like what happens when you rely so heavily on someone to be that pillar for you, like emotionally, and then like they're gone. And it could be any kind of circumstance. His brother could have died, his brother could have left her, but it was like his brother went to America. And it was implied he was there for a while because, like, by the time he got a whole nother letter, the guy had enough time to get another girlfriend. So it was
And okay,
implied that his brother
so
was gone for a bit by that point.
so this is why I was asking about his brother specifically, because in my mind, I think his brother was probably a lot like Haruko. I think he was probably I think he was probably manipulating Mimimi's feelings, and I think that's he was probably manipulating Naota's feelings in some ways too. And I think that's part of why Naota ended up being drawn to Haruko because
I
he.
think that Nato also would kind of lightweight talk shit on his brother whenever she'd
Mhm.
talk about him and be like, he's got a new girlfriend now. Like, he's probably like, dude, I live with the guy, shared a room with him. He's not that amazing.
Yeah, but to Naota he still is,
No,
and I
that's
think
what I mean, though. Is like, it's kind of one of those things like when you have a sibling and you're that close to them and like you have other people like revere them and you're like, I'm behind the scenes. I know them. Like,
mhm.
they're not as like, it's like the Eddie's brother thing. Like you never
Yeah,
actually see him, but like, when you do see him, it's not pretty.
he's an
Like,
asshole.
yeah. So it's like Naota's seen him.
Mhm.
So like that's why Naota's like, I don't know why everybody keeps making out my brother to be like hot shit when he's like a dickhole who didn't even break up with a girl properly before noping out of the country and like getting a new girlfriend in America. Like
Yeah.
his brother's obviously not a cool person, and it seems like from looking at his
But
dad,
I
like
think
and
I
how his
think his
dad
brother is. This is the thing. I think his brother is probably, and we're all just conjecturing, but like I think his brother was probably a good person. I think he was probably just flawed. I think he probably,
every character every person
yeah,
character's flawed. But I mean that's the point though, is like all we're given is the fact that Naota's kind of spiteful against him for not being there.
yeah,
And it's like he likes to acclimate a lot of the problems in the plot due to his brother not being there to just solve them. Like our sports team would just win if he was here. He didn't just disappear. Oh,
yeah,
well, like I would know how to deal with these awkward feelings or whatever if he was here. That's why in the baseball episode, it's funny when Haruko's showing him how to swing and all that. And it's like, she was like you said, trying to fill in brotherly roles for him a lot. Like when she was like doing the washing the hair thing. Like that's something you do for a younger sibling. So it's
yeah,
like she's kind of like asserting like the will that she could, and it's also she's like taking a lot of different family relationships and feelings and like knitting them all together to be awkward for them. I'm still trying to figure out what NO channel stand for. Like it's got to be like when you walk up and grab the wrong Starbucks order in a robot. Oh shit, that's what that is. But
uh,
like I don't know. Honestly, that's what I think it is I think it's a joke on like that mysterious character that you think's like super amazing or whatever. And I think the real thing about it is he's just a normal dude. Like he
mhm,
was a normal guy who played baseball, was pretty good and left. And like,
yeah,
you know, Naota seems to be bored and miss him and needs his help with like day to day like growing up stuff. But then like he seems like kind of like pissed off about him in other instances where it's like, man, you should be here to help me out with this.
yeah.
I'm still not exactly sure. I'd have to like re-listen to it, but I'm pretty sure he yells his brother's name out a few times when he's fighting. And
Well,
like,
Mamimi definitely does.
yeah, and like Canty reacts to it. So it's kind of funny that like Haruko and Canty being in the household kind of fill that like missing older siblings feel like he probably had.
Yeah,
Or like, I mean, like the mom's not there and Canty's there, so it's like their family dynamics just all sorts of fucked up.
yeah.
He has a
Okay,
very disjointed household, and it shows
yeah.
very much
It's
so.
incredibly dysfunctional and very unhealthy. Like, no wonder he's confused about everything. But okay, so I wanted to kind of get off just because we're like running a little late here. I wanted to get off of the thematic stuff and kind of just talk about the Pillows for a little bit and how good of a band they are. And I just wanted to ask you, what's your favorite song in this series, if you can remember any of them?
Oh, I mean, uh, I really like the one when Canty first eats Naota. I don't know the names of any of them, but I know scenes and instances where I was like, the music in this is dope.
Yeah, and this is a soundtrack that I have like listened to obsessively for the past like
I heard they
probably
come back
10
for the
years.
following too.
Yeah, because okay, the interesting thing about the Pillows was that their music wasn't designed to go with the series. They were just a band that the creator liked. And he
Yeah.
used all of their music for this, which I think is so cool. Of just like pick a random band that you're into and recontextualize their music using like images and using this thing. And now like they're the for me the music of the Pillars is completely tied with Fooly Cooley. They look like they feel like they were designed to go together.
Well, because Fully Cooley's an OVA, so it's kind of like its own little independent project, you know. So like, you know, you'll have like the Dragon Ball Z movies, they'll have like Disturbed in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because like you can't have Disturbed play every freaking episode of Dragon Ball Z because that would just be lame and cost way too much
But
money.
yeah, and but that
But with
still doesn't.
OVAs, they're smaller, so you're actually able to like play around with the music more. But that's what I love about Fully Cooley is like they took that concept of like, well, if it's a small 6 episode thing, then we could go full soundtrack. Like we could do it. Like, you know, like and I want to have the Pillows be my band for the whole thing. And like it worked. Like you could literally just put on the show and just listen to it and just enjoy it in the background, just like it's still a good show to pay attention to, but once you watch it enough, you just end up getting like a really cool Pillows playlist.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think 2 points on that. The difference I think between the Dragon Ball Z thing and the Fooly Cooly thing was that one, the having Disturbed and stuff in the movies, that was just for the American dubs. That wasn't in the Japanese. What?
It was just like pandering at the time because,
Yeah,
you know,
and it's
whatever.
it sounds
It
cool. It works for the scenes and stuff, but like the crazy thing about Fully Cooley is that the music just fits so perfectly like a glove. Like they seem so intertwined. Like if you watch the show not knowing about the Pillows, you would think that this music was made for the show because of how perfectly every scene goes. And like I've listened to this soundtrack like hundreds and hundreds of times, and every single song is tied to a very specific emotional moment in the show for me. Like this stuff is just like the music has just become inseparable from the series, I guess. And the fact that they like if you had dubbed it and put a different soundtrack over it, like it wouldn't have worked.
yeah,
And I think I want to kind of go into the dub a little bit because um, the Cartoon Cipher is a YouTuber that had a fantastic video about this. I just want to shout him out. But when they were making the dub, the American studio that was dubbing it was very in sync with the Japanese studio and was like working with the original director to find the right voice actors so that the voice actors for the dub sounded like the voice actors for the Japanese. And they could actually speak in Japanese in some scenes in the dub where stuff didn't translate and sound exactly like the Japanese voice actors and keep the essence of the character. And they actually worked with the director to like get all of these very specific Japanese references and find what the American analog of that would be and keep the original intent of the scene while changing out the reference for an American audience, which like I
actor was her first job.
yeah, yeah, for the voice actor for Haruko, right?
Yeah.
Because she was like a stage actor, I think.
Well, she went on to play a lot of people in a lot of different shows because of it.
Yeah, and she was fantastic in it.
Her voice was in a lot of other stuff, and no, that was the first one.
Yeah, yeah, no, she's incredible. Like, and both voice actors are. They actually designed the character of Haruko around the voice actress for her in Japanese. Like they actually like looked at her personality and talked to her and stuff, and they're like, the character feels kind of stiff, and they essentially wanted her to add like her own personality to it and sort of create the character of Haruko through her voice performance.
Let people know that. We've seen what they do to that poor girl on the internet.
What girl?
Yeah. Rule
What?
34.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
would not look myself up if somebody based a fictional character on me and there was Rule 34 for it. But then again, looking at me, it would probably be very bad.
Yeah. And this is one of the only series that I can watch where I think the dub and the sub are basically like exactly equal in quality. It doesn't matter which one you watch. They both work perfectly.
Oh yeah. I do feel like I like the dub a little bit more because when I watch anime, I prefer dubs if I can get them because if you know reading wise, I'd rather just read the manga.
Yeah.
You know, though I do love a lot of voice actors' performances and subs, so I will watch them as well. Especially scenes I really love. I'd love like I'll be like, oh wow, I really think this scene's really cool. I want to see how it sounded originally, and like
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, but
But
and we
yeah,
we also grew up on the dub. Like that's the one that we were listening to when we were kids.
and it's just one thing I want to point out is this series, like you could show it 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like damn near. It's like it's freaking Hayao Miyazaki level, like time
Hmm.
capsule, like animation, like it's crisp, it's good. Like it, God, just the amount of frames just for like even simple little gestures and motions, like it definitely was a well-produced series. I mean, yeah,
Uh,
like that's a given. It was Gainax, so everybody like when they hear Gainax is on something, they're like, "Oh my gosh, the people did Fooly Cooley," but it's like, no, I mean, like
and
that's
Eva.
yeah, and it's like, yeah, it shows, and it's a good thing Gainax did it
Yeah.
because it can be shown 10 years from now or 20 and the feeling will still be there. You'll feel awkward no matter what because no matter what there's always going to be a 12-year-old kid who feels awkward like Naota does, or
Yeah.
might feel a little bit disconnected, like, you know just don't be a Haruko. Don't go around and run people over and hit them with thousands of dollars of bass guitars. That bass guitar is like tens of thousands of dollars
Hmm.
for them.
Yeah. There's so
The
many cool
same. It's the
guitars.
same bass as the Scott Pilgrim one.
Oh, it's the same one.
Bass as the Scott Pilgrim one.
Yeah, it's the same one. It is. You're sure about?
Rickenbacker.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
because
I,
they're back in the day. They're like the bass for like rockers.
yeah,
I mean, I what was it? I looked in a heavy metal book, and one of Cliff Burton's first basses was a Rickenbacker.
gotcha.
So it's like a very well-renowned bass guitar. Same with the Gibson devil horn looking thing and the Flying V. Like a
Yeah,
lot of very iconic instruments. Very odd that they use instruments as weapons, especially the most iconic ones. But I mean, music's rebellious, and a lot of the series, it's about kids.
really
Rock and
cool.
roll instruments are like, kind of like part of like, kids like rock as they grow up because it's like about the sound
Yeah,
of real cool sometimes. Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, I think that should just about wrap it up on the Fully Cooley episode. If you haven't watched it, definitely watch it. And if you haven't read it, I guess read the manga.
Yeah, read it if you're into the series and you want some like extra perspectives on things. It is made by people that worked on the series, so you're not getting
Yeah.
something like third party bootleg.
But the manga is very much supplementary to the anime, so definitely like if you're gonna consume Fully Cooley, the best way to do it is with the anime.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, signing off.